All right, hello guys. Today we are talking about your core training, and specifically we're talking about progressing your core training and making sure that this part of your preparations, this part of your training is actually moving forward and being beneficial instead of being a little bit stagnant and not really going anywhere. Now, we've all heard of core training before. Don't need to go into that too much. We've all done it. We all probably do bits and pieces in our training here and there, and it can be a pretty important part of a hiker's preparation. But one thing that I see all the time from hikers and just trainers in general is when it comes to our strength training, or when it comes to other training, we might be okay about moving it forward over time and progressing it over time. We might, increase weight on strength exercises or choose harder exercises. We might increase our fitness, in our cardio exercises, doing longer sessions or quicker sessions or whatever it may be. And we tend to be okay in those areas. But when it comes to core training, for whatever reason, so many people miss out on progressing this type of training. And they literally just end up doing the same things over and over and over again. They may see little improvements here and there, but it usually ends up being something that is pretty stagnant. And it's just sort of either an afterthought in someone's training, it just fills in gaps, or it's just a little random thing people do day to day. And, what I'll say first of all is, this is probably better than nothing. If you're not doing any core training and you're just doing, plank here, plank there for 60 seconds, and you've been doing the same thing for a long, long time, that's absolutely better than nothing. But you can be doing much, 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 much better. Because when it comes down to it, as I always say in these podcasts, progression is the key to your long-term improvement, in the fact that the body gets used to things relatively quickly. And we want to continually be giving it more stimulus, more progression, more challenge. So essentially it'll be given the stimulus it needs to change, to adapt, to grow, to get stronger, more stable, and ultimately help us on the trail. So if you're just doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, you probably could be doing better. So when it comes to your core training, you kind of want to be looking at pretty much exactly the same as your strength training. Every few weeks, you want to be progressing it, making it a little bit harder. Now, typically people will look in two areas here, and they definitely overuse these areas in the sense of doing either more repetitions or more time on a certain exercise. So the typical thing, every hiker at some stage has done some sit-ups or some crunches. I personally do not like those exercises. I don't think they're very useful, and I think they're really, really overused, but we've all done it at some point. And what they'll start doing, they'll do 10 repetitions, then maybe 12 the next week, and then 15 the next week, and keep on building up until they can do more and more and more and more. It's pretty typical. We've probably all done that at some stage in our life. On the other end of things is, hikers will often use time to progress exercises. And again, pretty much every single hiker at some stage has probably done a plank at one stage or another. And they'll start up with a 20-second plank, then a 25, then 30, then 45, then 60, and slowly build up like that. And those two areas of progression are definitely beneficial. They definitely can help adding extra repetitions or adding extra time. But in my opinion, they're definitely overused. And again, if that is all you are doing and you're just trying to add reps every week or just trying to add time every week, there's going to come a point where that begins to slow down, the progress really begins to stall, and you stop really going anywhere. So when it comes down to your core training specifically, I quite like using a couple of different types of progressions as well to sort of slip into your training to help add some extra stimulus, add some extra challenge, and make things a little bit trickier. So the first one, and it's really, really similar to strength training, is just adding a little weight into your core exercises and using that as a stimulus for progression. So for example, if you were doing a plank, you might just put a 5 kilo plank plate on your back, or you might put a really light backpack on your back and hold your plank. And then over the next 3, 4, 5 weeks, you add a little bit extra weight, a little bit extra weight, a little bit extra weight. And I guarantee you, if you've been doing planks for a while and you've sort of stopped progressing, and you do that for 3 or 4 weeks, and then you go back to a normal plank, you are definitely going to improved. Very, very simple, but very, very effective. Or if you're doing something like a side plank, you can put a little weight on your hip. Or if you're doing a Pallof press, which I often talk about in this podcast, you could use a thicker band or a heavier weight if you're using a cable tower. Or if you're doing a dead bug, you could sort of load up, the arms and put a dumbbell in the arms, or you could wear ankle weights if you really wanted. Adding a little bit of weight can be very, very, very effective, and it probably is something worth exploring when it comes to your core training. And then the other method of progression, which I personally use a lot when it comes to core training, is just simply using a harder variation of an exercise. So instead of just doing the same exercise again and again and again and again and again, hoping it's going to get better, what I like to do is do the same exercise for about 3 to 4 weeks and then move to a slightly harder variation. So it's not a completely brand new exercise where you have to learn this new exercise, figure it out, and get all the intricacies right. But essentially, you're just doing the same movement with just a slight twist to just make it slightly harder. And the beauty of this is it basically tricks the body into thinking it's a brand new exercise. So you begin to progress again, you begin to move forward again, but you don't have to go through that whole learning process. Now, a few common examples here that I might use is, dead bugs. I always love dead bugs for hikers. It's part of almost every single one of my programs. And typically I'll progress a normal dead bug into what I call a wall push dead bug, in which you're quite close to a wall. You've got your arms overhead and you're pushing your arms into the wall while you're going through a normal dead bug motion with your legs. And what this does is it adds a little bit extra stimulus, a little extra challenge, and really, really does take that step up and keeps you moving forward. And I'll do that for 3 to 4 weeks, then move to the next version, and then the next version, the next version, and keep on moving up like that. Or if you're doing a side plank, a typical progression I might use is if you're doing a side plank on your feet and your elbow, then I'll turn into a side plank hip drive, in which you're holding that side plank position, but then you bring the top knee and drive that up to your chest, a little pause, and then come down. And what this does is it just adds a whole extra dynamic to this exercise and a whole extra challenge. Or if we're doing a plank, which everyone's done a plank, I'll progress it by doing, an alternating reach with the arms. So you're holding a plank position and slowly reach out, touch the ground in front of you, and then come back to the normal position. And then do the same thing on the other leg. And then the next round, 3 weeks, 4 weeks down the line, we might do alternating with the feet or whatever it may be. And there's always a little progression, a little change you can do just to keep things moving forward. And I think when we are looking at our core training for hikers to help us on the trail, I do think it is a really big trap that a lot of people fall into. It's just sort of something that when it comes to any training, we want to keep it moving forward. We want to keep on progressing, giving yourself more challenge. And so please don't fall into that trap of just stagnating with your core training. Have a think about ways you can progress it. Do the reps and time for a little while, but also maybe explore this weight, adding a little bit extra load. Maybe explore a harder variation and challenge yourself there. And it will definitely go a long, long, long way. Now, if you wanted some ideas around this, if you wanted some sort of visuals around those exercises I've described, if you're like, you know what, Rowan, those variations, they sound pretty cool, but I need a little bit of help figuring this out. Or if you just want some extra ideas around your core training in general, what I'd absolutely love you to do is if you haven't joined already, I would love if you could come and join the Training for Hiking and Trekking Facebook group. Now, inside that group, I'm more than happy to share video demonstrations of all the exercises I mentioned today. Always happy to share extra variations, extra versions, harder progressions, or whatever it may be. And I'm really, really happy just to expand on any topics we do talk about in these podcasts. So if you want to find out a little bit more, come and find the Training for Hiking and Trekking Facebook group. You can find that in a link for that in the show notes below. So thank you so much for listening today. I hope this has given you a little bit of insight into how to keep your core training moving forward. Hopefully it's given you a little bit of kick in the bum to get this progressions part of your training. And hopefully this will help you, over the long term. So thank you very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.